to the Midterm Rental Mastery Show. My name is Tanisha Spencer. I'm still getting used to saying that. It was Tanisha Epps, so you see my IG handle is still the same. It is, what is today? Friday, December 22nd. It's almost Christmas. And I am just working on rounding some things out for the year. And I wanted to come on today's episode and talk about the biggest thing that I'm getting a lot of questions about lately. So I figured it would just be easier to maybe just record an episode about it. HOAs when it comes to midterm rentals. Now, everybody has their opinion about HOAs. I have my own opinions about HOAs. So I want to talk about some of the questions that I'm getting and some of the problems that I'm seeing people run into when it comes to HOAs. So if you do not have a notebook, you might want to get one handy because this is going to be a note taker. Okay. So, number one, right? When we talk about HOAs, here's the first question you should ask. Does the HOA even allow rentals? Okay. So, just because there's an HOA community does not mean they have to allow rentals. That part is really, really important for you to determine upfront. Okay. So, take notes. Number one, does the HOA allow rentals? If they say yes, your next question is, how many rentals do you allow? So what you're looking for is occupancy. So some HOAs, like I have a property in an HOA community, which actually is the one that's right behind me. And the question is, do they allow 50% occupancy, 20% occupancy? Do they not have a limit? Because a lot of HOAs will say, hey, we allow rentals, but it can only be 10% of the population or 20% of the population. If they tell you that, the next question is, are they at capacity? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But if they're at capacity, then the next thing you need to ask is, how long is the wait list? What do I have to do to get on the wait list? And what do I have to do to tell you that I have a renter in the first place? This is before we ever even get to midterm rental, short-term rental, whatever it may be. Those are questions that you have to find out because if you buy a property or if you arbitrage a property in an HOA and you don't ask this question, not only can you cause a problem for yourself, but you're also causing a problem for your guests. Okay. So, number one question, does the HOA allow rentals? That's number one. Number two question, does the HOA have rental timeline restrictions? So this one is really important. So today I was talking to somebody during a consultation, and one of the questions that they asked was not to the HOA, by the way, was to a wholesaler. Okay. So, first thing, wholesalers, I love you so much. You bring us wonderful opportunities, but please don't make assumptions about what the HOA will allow or not allow just because that's what the homeowner tells you. That's not good enough. We need to actually be asking the HOA or looking up their rules online. Sometimes they're online. For example, I like going to Redfin, type in the address. It tells you the name of the HOA community. Usually it tells you how much it is. But also, what it does is because you have the name, you can look online to see if they actually have their bylaws, their rules online. I've seen it many, many times. And I can just go in and either look it up or I can just call the HOA and find out what's going on with rentals. So, do they have restrictions? Now, some HOAs that I'm seeing have restrictions where they're saying we won't allow anything less than 30 days. A lot of them are 6 months to 12 months. So you do not want to put words in the mouth of anyone else that you're speaking to if you're having a conversation with them. Here's how you want to do it. So you want to say, hey, do you guys have restrictions on the timeline you allow rentals? Stop talking. Do not say the word midterm rental. Do not say the word medium-term rental. Don't say those things because most people don't know what the heck you're talking about anyway. So don't say it. The question is, does your HOA have rental timeline restrictions? And if they say, what does that mean? Well, the length of time that it can have a renter, and then you can expand. So most people say, oh, yes, we only allow 12 months. Really? Why is that? And then be quiet. Don't say anything else. You want them to tell you the reasons why they are giving these restrictions. Most of the time, is because they do not want short-term vacation rentals. They don't want people rolling in and out of the properties. So I had one of my properties that I actually arbitraged, the landlord sent me a referral from a friend of hers, and they have a condo in an HOA community. Really nice place, beautiful. They had just rehabbed it. It's near the beach. It's wonderful. So the owner, I talked to him and he says, yeah, they allow rentals. So I literally am going through this progression with the owner because I'm going to send him to go talk to the HOA. I'm not going to do it, excuse me, on this one because it's an arbitrage. So I asked the owner to ask these questions. And he said, yes, 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 they allow rentals. Most of the people here have rentals. Okay, great. What's the timeline? He said, well, it shouldn't be a problem. I already asked them. I said, but yes, did you ask this specific question? Does your rental, do you have timeline restrictions? And he said, well, no, I didn't ask it like that. Sure enough, he texts me back and says, you were right. 12-month minimum. And I told him to ask why. And the reason was because they do not want short term rental vacation stays rolling in and out of their community. Because, right, the assumption is that people are going to be stupid. Sorry, it is what it is. I'm dealing with that right now in one of my places because someone decided that they wanted to let extra people stay in their property when they weren't supposed to. They caused a bunch of problems for my neighbors, and I'm going to have some issues with the HOA. Good thing I know my business because I'm going to have to go stand in front of the HOA and lobby to be able to continue to run my business on a property I just bought. It sucks. So, okay. So, rental timeline restrictions. Find out. So, before we move on to the next one, let me just throw this one out here because here's the caveat. So, most people are like, oh, well, they have a 6-month rental. So, let me be creative, right? Creativity is good. But what they do is they say, I'm going to write a lease to my LLC. So my LLC is the renter long term. And then I'm going to rent short term or midterm or whatever you want to call it for anything that's outside of what the HOA actually said they were okay with. Well, here's your problem. Okay. And this is going to go into what we're going to talk about with number 3. But the first thing is, number one, you're still violating the rules for the HOA. You still have the same problem, which is people coming in and out of your place, whether they're for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, it doesn't matter. So now if your neighbors complain or they report you to the HOA or the HOA just happens to go check, you've got an issue. Okay. And along this timeline piece, if you're talking to an HOA, especially if you already own the property, ask them where they're okay with you advertising, because most of them are going to say, well, we're not okay with Airbnb. Why? And then don't say anything else. Wait for them to give you the reason why. Yet again, the stigma with Airbnb, this is why, okay, by the way, this is why I do not call a property, whether it's short term or otherwise, I don't call it an Airbnb. Everybody can call it what they want, and that's fine. The reason is because I am trying to make sure that I have people differentiate the fact that Airbnb is a platform, just like Zillow or Redfin or Trulia or Rent.com, any of those places. And I have thrown that back at people, by the way, because I'm like, are you okay with people listing on Rent.com to rent the property? Yeah, 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 we're fine. What is the difference? It's all the same. You just have to know who your clients are. Okay, so let's try not to trick the rules. And part of what I'm about to talk about, number 3, is going to be why. Now, you can run your business any way you want. It's totally up to you. I just don't want the hassle. That's just me. I don't want to work that hard. Number 3, does the HOA allow access to amenities for your guests? Okay, so those amenities may include a pool. How does the guest access the pool if they're allowed? A gym, is that available to them? How can the guest access the gym? If there's a golf course, I don't know, maybe that's a thing. How do they get access to be able to go golfing? Right? I don't know. It's possible. So, all these amenities, how does the guest get access to them, or do they have access to them? Because if you want to advertise to someone that these things are available in a community, but then they don't have access to them, then you have to make sure you let them know. And you need to know the process for your guests to get access to those things so you can tell them upfront. Don't create more work for yourself. Create less work for you, a better experience for your guests. Next, parking. This, by the way, is how one of my consulting clients got caught doing rentals. And I've heard it a couple of times, but one of my consulting clients recently came to me and said, so we had a guest staying, but they did not have a parking permit. And the HOA is very particular about people having parking permits. This is something you need to know. So, because they didn't have a parking permit, the guest's car got towed. And then the next thing they want to do is come to the owner and say, why is this person parking here when they're not supposed to because they don't have a pass? Except the HOA rule was a 6-month minimum. And this is how the HOA found out because there was a car parked where it shouldn't be. So these are all things you have to think about. Because if you go and buy a property or arbitrage a property and you work outside of the rules and someone finds out, what's your backup plan? How do you get out of it? Okay. That part is super, super important. It's a problem. And technically, that was number 4. So we went to number 4. Do they have HOA restrictions or requirements? Okay, so I want you to really think about HOAs. Why do they exist? Technically, HOAs exist to try to keep some type of order in the community, to try to provide a really good experience. You can have your opinion about HOAs. I got my own opinion. Some are good and some are bad. It is what it is. But if you're looking at a property in an HOA, these are all things that you need to consider and ask. Please do not assume. Please don't go through the process of trying to trick the system if you don't know the rules, because it's not going to fly very well and you're probably going to cause problems in your own business. And I don't know about you, but I don't like to waste money. I'm a big coupon shopper. I like discounts on things, but I don't like overpaying for stuff when I could have avoided it in the first place. So, if you guys have questions about HOA or you want to share your experiences, please, please, please drop in the comments. And before I go, because I really should have said this in the beginning. So, if you guys aren't familiar with Furnish Finder and the Landlord Diary series, I just had an episode drop on whatever the Monday is before today's date of December 22nd. So, I'm going to drop the link in the description down below so you can go check out my Furnish Finder episode. Please go support. I am really starting to do more speaking things, and I am not a big in front of people person. I'm just trying to get better every day. Thank you, Pace Morby, for continuing to encourage me to do so. Until the next time, I really appreciate all of you watching. Please like and subscribe to this show. And I'm going to keep bringing more content. I'm going to start bringing on people to talk about creative finance, about systems, so you don't have to listen to just me talk all the time. I am probably not that engaging. Maybe. Again, we all have our opinions, but either way, Merry Christmas. All of those. I want to be as inclusive as possible. So, whatever you celebrate, enjoy your family. I really appreciate all of you continuing to support. And if you have questions, like I said, drop them in the chat. You can scan my little link here and connect with me, all that good stuff. And until next time, thank you so much for watching.